Hello everybody, it's Sarah and it is time to talk about the books that I've read so far in August, which I am happy to say are already more than I read in the entirety of July. I read 7 books in July, which by the way still is a lot of books, but I have now already read 8 books in August because somehow my reading pace is back at reading way too many books. So yeah, let's get into it. First, of course, starting with rereads. The first reread I have is Crucial Start by Jacqueline Carey, which is the first book within the Crucial Start world series. There's, I think, a total of 3 trilogies. This is the first book of the first one, which I think is called Phaedra's Trilogy, because that is our main character, Phaedra. Phaedra is an Anguisette, which within this world basically means she's, first of all, one of a kind, and second of all, she feels all suffering and pain as pleasure. Basically, she's the ultimate magical masochist. She was also born into the Night Courts, which within this world are like different types of high-end bordels catering to different needs. And when she's 10, I believe, she is discovered by a man who recognizes her potential and recognizes what her gift of being an Anguisette can bring him in terms of, you know, political intrigue stuff. So she grows up to become a prostitute spy, basically. I really enjoyed this reread. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as when I read it the first time. The first time around I gave it 5 stars. I wouldn't give it that much anymore, especially because there's a lot of meandering story and plot lines. Like, I do believe that this book could have been split into 2 probably. There's like 900 pages, and I gotta be honest, I remembered a lot of it, but the last third of the book, completely gone. Didn't remember a single thing from the last third of the book. So yeah, I do think it's very interesting. I think it's beautifully written. I think it's definitely very different from any other fantasy that I have on my shelves. There are a lot of graphic sex scenes, but I would not put this into the category of erotica. This, for when it was written, this came out in 2003, especially when it comes to sexuality stuff, is very progressive. Like, our main character, she's never called that, but our main character is bisexual or pansexual. She pretty much doesn't care what gender someone has, and you know, she has patrons who are women, she has patrons who are men, and her first great love, in a way, in a messed up toxic way, is a woman. So yeah, I did not remember that at all from when I read it the first time. I don't know how I missed that, but was pleasantly surprised for when I read it now. So yeah, but I will have a series review once I reread the entirety of the trilogy. Let's get a few books out of the way that I just want to talk about very quickly. First, I have Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funke. This is a middle grade standalone, and you're following a dragon, what's a kobold in English? Like a gremlin? I don't know what it is. Goblin? Goblin? Is that the right word? Whatever. You follow a mystical humanoid thing, a dragon, and a boy on the search for a place where dragons can live without being discovered by the humans. And yeah, it's Cornelia Funke, it's middle grade. I'm not a middle grade reader anymore. I think if you are a middle grade reader, this is fun. I'm happy I finally read this, because I think I've had it on my shelf since I finished the Inkheart trilogy, which was more than 10 years ago. So you know, it's been a while, but I'll probably also unhaul this soon because I don't really feel any attachment to it. I also finally finished the first of the 2 volumes of my Arabian Nights edition, which is the first German translation that was ever created, and they reprinted it a few years ago. So this is also illustrated, but the illustrations are also quite old, so they are yeah, insensitive, let's say it like that, at a few points. But yeah, I just realized I'm not the biggest fan anymore of just straight up reading fairy tale collections. I'm also working my way through the complete Brothers Grimm fairy tale collection right now. And there's certain fairy tales and stories that I highly enjoy. And there's certain traditions of fairy tale tellings that I highly enjoy. For example, I really like Celtic fairy tales. But a lot of times I'm like, there's a reason why the well-known ones are the well-known ones, and why most of the others, even people from the countries themselves, like me with the Brothers Grimm, like I'm from Austria, not Germany, but you know, same thing, kind of, whatever. Why even the people who grew up with those things only know specific ones. I would say I grew up with more fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm than a lot of Americans will be familiar with, for example, because I just had bigger collections in my home. But there's a reason why it's always the same ones in collections and why we haven't heard from the other ones. It's basically what I'm trying to say. And so yeah, I skimmed a lot of the stories. I skipped some of the longer stories because I was just lazy and I was bored, and I wasn't feeling reading 70 pages of a fairy tale that felt like I read it 500 times already within the volume. So yeah, I'm still gonna read the second part of the Arabian Nights, but I'm just discovering that I'm better served with, you know, a selection of stories, collection type things, and not reading the full complete stuff, because yeah, there's a lot in there where it makes sense that we have no clue about them anymore because they're boring as fuck. Then I also finally finished Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. This is another book that I wouldn't say I skipped chapters, but I skim read a lot of them. I'll get to it in a bit. But for those of you who don't know what this is about, basically this is the story of Captain Ahab. I know it, like in German we say Captain Ahab, I don't know what it's in English. And he lost his leg to the famous white whale years ago, and now he's out for revenge and he's kind of searching for that whale to kill him. However, the story isn't told through Captain Ahab's point of view, but it's told through the point of view of Ishmael. We also get the famous first line, which is, let me get it for a second, call me Ishmael. So that's literally the first line, which is quite well known among certain circles. But yeah, he's a sailor on Captain Ahab's ship. And yeah, so that's the story. Now, there's a lot of descriptions about whaling and about whales that absolutely add nothing to the story, especially if you're already kind of slightly familiar with whaling and how it worked. I have had like a passing interest in whaling, so there's some things I already knew about, and like there's chapters upon chapters that are just descriptions of the whale's spouting thing, the whale's tail, the whale's skeleton or whatever, and they're not necessary. Like, they're beautifully written, like the language used is beautiful, but they're also really boring. However, what did get me a little bit through it is that Ishmael had this really homoerotic relationship with a cannibal. Yeah, it was written in the 19th century. To a certain degree, I can't even be really offended at the description of Queequeg. I don't know how to pronounce his name, because it's just, it's all the stereotypes, but at the same time he's a really great character. And as I said, there's this really weird homoerotic relationship between Ishmael and this cannibal character. And yeah, it's very interesting. I don't know if I would recommend this. I'd recommend maybe, like, Moby Dick has a lot of abridged versions. maybe read one of those. I don't think it's absolutely necessary to read the entirety, all 600 to 800 pages, depending on edition, of Moby Dick. Very quickly, because I will have a series review up, I finished the Draven trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. This follows our main character Nadi, who is a young woman living in Cairo as a thief mostly, and, you know, a trickster. Trickster isn't the right word, but I don't have a capability for words today. I'm sorry. But yeah, one day she accidentally summons a djinn and is then taken away to this magical city called Devabad, and there she is drawn into the politics of the different clans of djinn. Now, I finished the series. I think this one I probably enjoyed the least, actually, out of all 3 books. I feel like it was slightly too long and there were some things that could have been shortened. But yeah, I will talk about my feelings on a lot of the characters and so on in my review, so we'll leave it at that for now. I also continued on in the Traitor Spy Trilogy by Trudy Canavan with The Rogue. The Traitor Spy Trilogy is the sequel trilogy to Trudy Canavan's Black Magicians Trilogy, which is one of my all-time favorite nostalgia reads, one of the first adult high fantasy series that I ever read, and I'm happy to finally be continuing on. I enjoyed this slightly less than the first book, but that was mostly because a character that I surprisingly really loved in the first book, who I hated in the original trilogy, wasn't in this book, sadly. But hopefully he's gonna be in the next one again, so very happy about that. And yeah, what is this about? I can't tell you too much. It's a sequel trilogy. Mostly we're following the same characters 20 years after the first trilogy, but also some of the children and some new characters from the first trilogy. But there's not that much I can tell you about this series without spoiling the first one. Something I did really appreciate though is that Trudy Canavan literally put the meme of just 2 bros sitting in a hot tub 5 feet apart because they're not gay meme in here. Years before that meme ever came out. I mean, both the characters know they're gay, and it's more like sitting 5 feet apart because I know you're gay and I know you're attracted to me, and it scares me that you're attracted to me. So like, it's that type of energy, but I still found it very amusing. Then I read The Lovers Discourse by, and once again I won't try to pronounce this author's name because Chinese names scare me, and I know no matter how much I try, which I tried a few takes already, but no matter how much I try, I can't even get close to pronouncing it right, so we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna embarrass ourselves like that. But this follows a Chinese immigrant to Britain who moves there during or just after the Brexit referendum. And it kind of deals with and explores themes of belonging, of language, of understanding each other. And just, we follow this young woman, or, well, I don't actually know how old she is, but we follow this woman as she kind of tries to come to terms with the situation she finds herself in. And I think it's an incredibly deep and incredibly thoughtful book. That said, it's also kind of very depressing. So yeah, I can definitely recommend this. I'm very happy I read it. I'm like, I cannot say I enjoyed it. It's not that type of book. But as I said, I'm very happy I read it and I can definitely recommend it. Now, the last book that I read so far in August is a book that I just randomly picked up at the bookstore because I read the back. Well, I saw the cover, I liked the cover, I read the back, and I thought it sounded interesting. And that is At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. I don't even know if it's David, it should probably be David because it's a French author, or a French Senegalese author. I think it's Senegalese. So the author was born in Paris, grew up in Senegal, and now lives in France. And in this story, we follow 2 Senegalese soldiers fighting in the Great War, which, for those of you who don't know, the Great War isn't actually the Second World War, but the Great War, especially for the French, is World War One. And so they're fighting in World War I, and one of them is killed, and we follow the other one as he kind of deals with this death of his friend. And, well, not friend, actually, it's more than brother, I think it's called. So yeah, I thought the translation was really well done. I mean, I cannot say that the translation was well done because I haven't read the original French novel, but I really enjoyed the writing. So I don't know how accurate the translation is, but whatever the result is beautifully written, and it's hard to explain. It's a difficult book to read. There's a lot of nuance there, and it's one of those books that you kind of have to read for yourself, because I don't really know what to say about it. But yeah, there were a lot of hard moments within the story. So those were the books I finished so far. Now, once again, let's quickly go through the books that I am currently reading. First, I'm reading Fausts Leben, Taten und Höllenfahrt by Friedrich Klinger. I only just started, I'm 30 pages in. It's like barely made any progress, only started this today. I randomly picked up because, I don't know, apparently I was in the mood for a romance or something. After Love. I just saw this randomly at my bookstore and I was like, you know what, it sounds interesting, it looks pretty, it's a pretty cover, why not read it? Why not randomly pick it up? And for this one, I'm about a third of the way into it right now. Then I am halfway through, well, more than halfway through my reread of Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson, which is the third book in the Wax and Wane / second era of Mistborn. I have already read a good chunk of Black Coast by Mike Brooks, and I am enjoying this so much. I am so happy I picked it up. It's so good. Like, I'm probably gonna make a full review of this because I'm only 160 pages into it out of 660, I believe. And there's already so many thoughts I want to share. And then I started with this illustrated edition of Japanese ghost stories. So yeah, that was the book that I read so far in August. If you have any thoughts on any of the books I talked about, tell me in the comments down below. I would love to hear them, or read them, I guess. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out. All the links to my book club of Queens, Witches and Valkyries, where we read one adult high fantasy book written by a woman or genderqueer person per month, will also be left linked down below. In August, we are reading She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, if you're still interested in joining in and joining the Discord and everything. And yeah, with all of that said, I believe that's it, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!